Those who face eternity easily forget what a lifetime means, what an ending means.
You know it doesn't have to be this way.
No, Kunavine, it does. They need me.
Well, guys, I was happily streaming along yesterday when people started posting something in chat very regularly. And what was it? Well, another roadmap. And actually one of the most exciting roadmaps I've seen ArenaNet do this year. It's not even really a game roadmap. It's a roadmap for everything their Twitch streams are going to be doing from now up until End of Dragons actually launch. So in today's video, I want to run you guys through that news, what my expectations are of it, and also something I didn't even talk to you guys about in the last part, which is that the conclusion of their Xingje playthrough stream had an elite spec teaser on it. It was this. It's very clearly the Ranger. I want to dedicate the back half of this video to talking about that. So let's run through with ArenaNet's winter live stream schedule. Here's the image they've revealed. And look, the footage isn't going to be too fascinating on this video. We're largely going to be looking at this. It obviously looks a lot like their actual gameplay, quarterly, upcoming stuff, but it's just going to be showing off the shows they're dealing to do with End of Dragons. It gives us a really good sense of what will be coming with the X-Pack. It also implicitly confirms a bunch of stuff and kind of closes a lots of doors of potential for the expansion through that confirmation. So let's have a look. First of all, in just a week and a bit, we have the third beta. That beta is going to be the final 3 elite specs, of which 2 have already been teased. We've had the Ranger tease and we've had the Thief tease. I guess in just a couple of days we'll get the last of those, and then we'll be running through that. I do apologize for everyone sick of me basically just talking about elite specs non-stop the past couple of months, but I mean, there's only so much of that to be helped, but that's a large focus of the studio, and I'm really excited about the specs in general and diving into them. Then we get into some good stuff. November 12th, which really isn't too far off, we have the Echovald Wilds map tour. So, it's not going to be called the Echovald Forest here, it's the Echovald Wilds. It wasn't too long ago we were wondering whether this would even be in the X-Pack. It could be like a corner situation that Path of Fire had, where the region would only come in Living World, or maybe even with Istan. But it does look like, through this image, it is the exact same 4 regions, all included with the X-Pack that we got in Guild Wars 1. We already know Xingje, we've seen a preview of it. November 12th will be the Echovald Wilds. Now, it's not called the Echovald Forest anymore, it's the Echovald Wilds. I believe that's suggestive of a little bit more plant life coming back, new, fresh growth. I think it'll be untamed, and exploring the area will be about sort of maybe hacking back those trees or something. Maybe that says something quite sad about the Kurziks. So I've said quite a few times, I would be really excited if maybe one of the factions we knew from Guild Wars 1 is just wiped out at this point, or is, you know, migrated elsewhere. Just some kind of change. I don't want to fully retread the story from 250 years ago. So now that they're the Echovald Wilds, it kind of sounds like they're not domesticated lands, right? The Kurziks are maybe struggling to adapt and continue to thrive and live there. You'll also see lower down, if we skip ahead into the December section, they talk a bit about a mastery, the Arborstone Revitalization Mastery Tree. We haven't heard much about mastery trees. We can assume obviously like the Siege Turtle will get one, but there we hear of one that presumably will be dedicated to the Echovald Wilds. And again, if it's about revitalization, maybe the idea is reclaiming lost land because the Kurziks haven't kept it very well. For the people who didn't play Guild Wars 1, who I too often have been forgetting recently, Arborstone was a region of the Echovald Forest you could explore in the original game. Basically, one of the great houses of the Kurziks had a big-ass cathedral called Cathedral Zuheltza, and there's a mission, the first mission you do when you travel to the Echovald Forest in general, where you go there to reclaim an urn, and the whole cathedral is like erupting and breaking down with its magical traps as you run away. That was the Arborstone mission. The description of the outpost says, for centuries, the Zuheltzers have expanded and remodeled their house cathedral, adding new wings and levels on a yearly basis. Recently, the Council of Nobles determined that the cathedral and the area around it should have an official name, since it had grown to the size of a large town. Count Zuheltzer predictably suggested the area be called Cathedral Zuheltzer, but the other house nobles wouldn't hear of it, and Arborstone won the final vote. So that's Arborstone, and here, 250 years later on this image, we see some suggestion of Arborstone revitalization. So during Guild Wars 1 times, they've been building on it, building on it, building on it. I'm kind of liking the idea that something's gone wrong in the interim. So anyway, that's November 12th, not very long away. Then, immediately a week after that, you'll notice there's a 7-day gap, November 19th, we have the Jade Sea. So that's going to be a really cool week. We've got a week to chew on the Echovald Wilds, and then we're looking at the Jade Sea. This time it's not renamed as a region, it's just the Jade Sea. And there's no hints at masteries or anything like that. Christ knows what's going on there. But there you have it. Barely after that's over, and we're in late November, they'll be looking at the Siege Turtle. So it's not really a surprise to me that they're leaving the Siege Turtle so late, so to speak. I kind of say that in air quotes. Because if you remember at the first peek I mentioned at the time, they really didn't have anything to show about the Siege Turtle. They said it was going to be a component of the map. They said it was going to be a co-op mount. They said it was going to be a combat mount. So it kind of breaks two forms of new territory that I'm excited about, both of them. But they had basically nothing. Didn't they have like a render of the baby turtle? Presumably as we gather it in Cantha, we're going to be slowly building it up a bit like we did with the Skyscale and stuff. As much as people like talk badly about the Skyscale acquisition, it was something I really enjoyed. And I hope that the Siege Turtle has something similar. But that's it really. We had concept art. There's been nothing else. So I feel like it's because they didn't have anything done yet. So they're leaving it as late as they can so that then when it's finally ready to show, they've got something fun going on. We saw with the more recent stream about skiffs that the animations had broken and people were T-posing and stuff. I'm sure a bunch of those issues are occurring with the Siege Turtle too. For what it's worth on that Xingji stream as well, I never mentioned on my last video, there is a moment where they open the mount menu and you could see turtle written on there. It's just a little hint. There was also 2 copies of the Skyscale, which is especially strange. I'm wondering why that would be, because they're obviously not messing with the Skyscale. It's the Raptor and the Springer that are coming over in the expansion, right? Does that mean they do have plans? I mean, it's End of Dragons. We're going to a nation filled with dragons. They would probably do another moment where we're mounting on Arena at some point, right? Like they did at the end of Season 4, except now as an Elder Dragon or something. So maybe there are some surprises in store for us with the Skyscale, similar to how the Griffin was a surprise with POF. That's kind of where my money is right now and why that was on the menu. I guess we'll see in just a few short months, because moving to the next box, we realize how soon the expansion actually is. I'm still kind of in the mindset where I'm simmering with the game and it's like, End of Dragons is 6 months away. There's other stuff in the meantime to be excited about. You know, as I now build onto the Final Fantasy hype train, I'm looking out for their expansion, Endwalker, and it's very easy to think of End of Dragons ages away. But, I mean, look at this. December 3rd, they give us expansion gameplay overview. And this is going to be legendary weapon variants. I have to be honest, I'm not very excited about that because it's just the Aurene set and... Well, okay, maybe there's some potential at this moment that they'll show us the Aurene variances are actually really huge. And, you know, we've all been naysaying it a bit too much. But they've got that. They've got new story characters, which they've kind of already hinted at a bit. We'll be looking at the Guild Hall, which, as far as I remember, has been confirmed to be on the Xingji Arena Island. I actually showed that off. I did a tour of Xingji right before the big stream the other day. We went to the arena map. It's really gorgeous there. So they'll be looking at that. Hopefully they go a bit further than Path of Fire and give us some more things to play with. I would love not just a new hall, but a new building that gives new progression in the previous halls. I feel like that's the kind of stuff the game should be doing. And then the masteries we mentioned already. That's December. We look at January. They'll give us the final tour, which is Kaineng. Now, similar to what I said with the Siege Turtle, where I feel like they've got to buy time so that they can get a lot of it in, I imagine Kaineng is really difficult to do. And I imagine there's a lot of work they've got to put in. It's a very difficult thing to show like a dense city, but also not destroy people's frame rates, and also not make it feel empty. Like, are they going to fill it with NPCs, or is it just going to feel really hollow? Are they going to tie a story beat that makes it feel kind of empty? And, you know, it's not just any city, it's Kaineng. It's like based on like Kowloon, the walled city in real life. If you look at it in Guild Wars 1, which was much more like graphically simplistic, and you actually try to break down what they're doing there, I don't know whether that works in the modern era. You know, they managed to take the Desolation from Guild Wars 1 and put it in Guild Wars 2, and it looks brilliant. But I don't know how they'll do Kaineng. I think that's going to be very tough for them. Consider the verticality, consider all the different kinds of content and things that go into Guild Wars 2. It's going to be rough. I wouldn't be surprised if they're desperate for the DirectX stuff to get out of beta and be as solid as possible before they even start looking at it. But there you have it. And then finally, late February, launch day. Launch day appears on one of these roadmaps. I mean, how fantastic is that? And when I was reading this casually yesterday, it really dawned on me, okay, maybe I should be a little bit more ready here, because for some reason I'd got it in my head that we'd be waiting until like March, April, maybe even. It's late February and they'll already be doing a stream for the launch day. So really, really good stuff, and it puts us, I think, very clearly in sight of the finishing line. A lot to see and a lot further studio probably to do. So there you have it. That's basically what they revealed. Some nice little nuggets in there, my take on those. Let's go to the other thing, and that's this image here. It's the Ranger teaser. You know, I feel kind of bad about this, right? When we first saw the Virtuoso teaser, we didn't know it was the Virtuoso yet. You know, we got so much speculation and enthusiasm out of it, and now we're on number 8. And I feel like, okay, what do we really have to say? It's green, that's gonna mean Ranger, it's pretty obvious. Also, we've already seen 6 of them, so it's pretty obvious. Within the green, we can see a bunch of leaves. Now, you could go on a speculation rant now, and say that that relates to something precise about Cantha. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I do also want to be clear that it's a Ranger. You know, nature and leaves and plants and things has always been kind of a part of its vibe. I think as well the character that represents the Ranger in these silhouettes often is a Sylvari. And I think from the gear we can see here, we know that it's not going to be like a whole armor of elite specialization gear. They'll only do one piece or two. It's a leafy looking armor set, but it's also a leafy looking hammer. Now that's where I think we can draw a little bit more on this, because I do think it's going to be very, very nature inclined. I have 2 big concepts that I think this will be, and I think they're both related to the Echovald forest, or the Echovald wilds as it's now called. And let's note, that is a forest that is distinct for being a petrified, greyed, lifeless forest. But in the first game, there were a few little places where there was life, namely in 2 stories. First, the Kurzik people had a ritual whereby, utilizing the amber, the magical amber they had in their environment that they could mine out, the Luxons could mine jade, these guys could mine the amber. By the way, it's really interesting that the technology in End of Dragons is going to be dragon jade and not necessarily dragon amber. They're not like doing both of them. But anyway, the Kurziks had a ritual where they had a couple of trees. They were called the Forever Trees. They were in a glade, and they did this big ceremony where they would transform into massive plant-infused juggernauts. They were called juggernauts. I always think of them as like Halo's super soldier Spartans, right? Big, slow-moving, stronger than the other, you know, things that the Kurziks had at their disposal, and they would use them to fight. So the Luxons had siege turtles they'd fight with. The Kurziks had juggernauts, and the juggernauts in game mechanics would like flip the siege turtles over on their back and so on, and there was like a lot of interplay between that stuff. But the idea was, it was a person within it. It was a person's soul. It's very, very similar to how the Exalted were created in the name of Glint's legacy and so on. And I really want to see an End of Dragon story return to the Juggernauts. Not necessarily anything to do with elite specializations, but just to draw that parallel and talk about, you know, souls captured in things. I mean, there's some nice Massart connections that they could do there as well. One cool detail about Juggernauts is if the guy dies, then the Juggernaut just comes back at the tree. So the tree just needs to be kept alive, basically. So it's a really cool idea. We go 250 years forward. Is it possible that the magical workings of this have been expanded and adapted somewhat, and now we see Rangers can key into it somehow to become Juggernauts? I think that would be really cool. That's going to be especially cool if one of the other elite specs we haven't seen a teaser for yet, the final one, Engineer. We've seen the icon for the Engineer, and we've seen in the trailer that people are like modifying their body with dragon jade tech. If the Engineer is getting some kind of golem, you know, pilotable mini mech thing that it can ride around in, I think you could maybe have a similar thing in Guild Wars 2, where you have the Rangers having their Juggernaut modes, and you have the Engineers having their dragon jade golem thing mode. That theory kind of won't work until we see the Engineer hint, which probably will be in the next couple of days, but that's kind of an idea I think that they might go with. The other idea that a lot of people are talking about is to do with the Wardens. So within the Echovald forest, there weren't just Kurziks living there. There was a species of plant creatures called Wardens. When the Jade Wind struck, these guys got incredibly pissed off that humans had caused the destruction of their homeland, their habitat. It was a very frequent story in factions. The Naga had a similar thing over in the Jade see. And so these guys are just mad, and they're kind of like defenders of the forest, and they're fighting against you. The Wardens, as a people, I think are very, very exciting for the full Sylvari story. The idea that there was another pale tree in the Echovald forest that got messed up somehow, the Wardens are basically another variety of Sylvari, is genius. The Wardens were seen fighting alongside Thorn Wolves, who in Guild Wars 2, we see Thorn Wolves with the Nightmare Court Sylvari. And it's hard to overlook the coincidence that what do Sylvari who defend the pale tree call themselves? They call themselves Wardens, the exact same as these plant-like creatures in Cantha that may have been defending another tree that got messed up by the Jade Wind. So we kind of interacted with Guild Wars 1 Wardens, but they were enemies. They didn't say very much. They had kind of their own culture, and that's about it. Now, the compelling idea here for me is that if the story is over 250 years, the Kurziks have kind of completely fallen out of control of the forest, and maybe if magic and life is coming back, maybe the Wardens there have chilled out a bit. And whether they're Sylvari connected or not doesn't really matter. If they've chilled out a bit, maybe when the commander goes there or other Canthans in the interim, perhaps they've learned to collaborate a little bit, and some of their powers and their abilities are now available to us, and that's why the elite specialization is going to be a Warden and gets to use the hammer. So there you have it. Now, 2 thoughts on this that really I have nowhere to go, and I'm a little bit disappointed. First of all, what do we say about hammer on a ranger? It could be like a bunny thumper playstyle, as we saw in Guild Wars 1. You would use a ranger main to use warrior hammer abilities that should cost a lot of energy, but a ranger could invest in expertise to lower those. And a very aggressive, very strong PvP build was knocking people down while your pets savaged them while they were on the floor. It was named Bunny Hopper because of the way the animations looked on the hammer as you spammed these really low cooldown abilities, very, very low on energy. So it could be a bit of an allusion back to that Guild Wars 1 gameplay. But aside from that, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, it's the second hammer user for this set. Obviously, we already have the Catalyst using it, so keep an eye out for the existing legendary hammers and what this new Aurene one's going to be looking like. Aside from that, I don't really know. And here's the real kicker. This is something that I really kind of want your feedback for in the comments, guys. None of this means anything for pets, does it? I mean, Druid didn't really do anything with the pet, and people could just kind of sort of hand wave and said, well, whatever. Later, the pet actually got actively nerfed on Druid. Soul Beast really played with it. It allowed you to do a lot more by merging with the pet, getting access to its abilities and so on. I was hoping for kind of a reverse Soul Beast in this expansion, where instead of the pet coming into us, we go into the pet. We become like a WoW Druid kind of thing, where you can actually control the animal. The animal is the full thing. But I really don't see that matching with any of this. If the pet was a big mechanic, I would have expected to see it on this silhouette somewhere, and it's not. So I just don't really have any inspiration. If it's a Juggernaut, what are they going to do with a pet? If it's a Warden, what are they going to do with the pet? There's no through line there. And really, the pet is what defines Guild Wars Rangers. Whether you like that or not, it kind of is a big thing. It's a thing for a lot of its trait interactions and so on too. So where do they go with that? I'm very curious on your thoughts there, guys. So that's it. A little bit more of a round table of what's currently going on with Guild Wars. I'll keep you guys in the loop when it comes to the Wild versus Wild stuff and the direct stuff, just as soon as I have a few more opinions about it. And in the meantime, I'm kicking something big off today. We're all waiting for End of Dragons, an East Asian-inspired expansion for Guild Wars. We've obviously been waiting this whole time. Interestingly enough, the corresponding expansion to Path of Fire over on Final Fantasy's side was their East Asian-inspired expansion. It's called Stormblood. I know nothing about it, and I'm doing a blind playthrough focused on the story, and I'll be presenting it in a way that complete noobs to that game who know nothing about it, like me, Guild Wars fans, presumably, we can play it and follow along. So if you guys are interested in that, I'm starting that today. If you can't watch it live, all the VODs go up, obviously on Twitch itself, but also on my second channel, WoodenPotatoes too. So I'm especially interested in this, because I want to see how that other MMO did its East Asian thing, how I sort of vibe with the themes and stuff, because it's all going to be very, very relevant and very interesting when it comes to how ArenaNet does End of Dragons. So if you're interested in that, broadening your horizon a little bit with MMOs like I am at the moment, I would love to have you guys there. I really would. There'll be a link in the description. Thanks to everybody who's already been tuning in. The streams have been brilliant. And yeah, I'll be back very soon, guys. Probably Boots will be on the next part. We haven't seen him for a bit, but I want to do this not Catalyst discussion. I want to do the Vindicator discussion with him, because I really like that a lot. And we got to get those done before we get these next 3 specs. Oh, things are moving fast. Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one very soon. Ta-ta now.